Minister, this amendment is about loopholes and establishing an effective, a minimum effective corporate tax rate. We've rehearsed the argument at length, but I do think that the argument that you make that if we did this, that somehow we would endanger foreign multinational investment in this country, I don't believe that's true, because they are paying such a low level of tax. And as I pointed out to you the other day, even Senator Brendan Boyle on national radio on the day Joe Biden was elected, a Democrat congressman, when asked about this, said actually no, if there was a little bit more tax requested or levied on these multinational companies, would they leave? And he said, I don't think so. I don't believe so. Because they make so much profit here, and Ireland is such an ideal location, particularly because of our trained and skilled workforce, and because of our access to European markets and the fact that we're English speaking. So, you know, why would we not consider having a minimum effective corporate tax rate so that the clear and fairly brazen exploitation of loopholes, particularly in the area of intangible assets and in the area of intra-group transactions, which are running... I was wrong, by the way, in the committee debate to say that had changed in the layout of the revenue reliefs. It's just a bit hard to find online. But just so we know, 16 billion in intra-group transactions relief. That's one loophole, 16 billion euro. And that's the movement of profits to subsidiaries where they become then costs for those companies. And through that mechanism, they write down their tax bill, their taxable profit to negligible levels. I think the Minister knows the argument, he knows our view of it, but surely one way to make things a bit fairer, to get a significant additional tax contribution, to close off what is clearly an abuse, to some degree at least, would be to enforce a minimum effective corporate tax rate.
I propose to take Amendments 69 and 70 together. The trading profits of companies in Ireland are generally taxed at the standard corporate tax rate of 12.5%. Some of the main features of the current corporate tax regime are its simplicity and the fact that it applies to a broad base. Our growth-friendly tax system has contributed to improvements in living standards for all citizens and is consistent with the OECD's recommendations for how best to support economic growth. Deputies will be aware that a range of different analysis has found that the effective corporate tax rate in Ireland is between 10 and 11%. This includes research by my department, co-authored by an independent academic, reports by the Controller and Auditor General, and annual data published by the Revenue Commissioners. While this percentage is lower than the 12.5% rate, this can be attributed to the availability of a small number of targeted tax measures that may lower the effective rate of corporate tax paid in Ireland. Furthermore, while our headline rate is low, the yield from corporate tax revenue makes up a substantial portion of exchequer revenues. Corporation tax was the third largest tax head in 2019, accounting for over 18% of total net tax receipts. For the year to date, corporate tax receipts have continued to perform well, notwithstanding the current economic circumstances. Excuse me. The sustained corporate tax receipts are critical to maintaining exchequer revenues and funding the government's supports to both individuals and businesses who have been affected by this disease. It's my view that any increase in corporate tax rates would be detrimental to our economy. Deputies may be aware that the Department of Finance carried out a comprehensive economic assessment of our corporate tax policy in 2014. It found that any increase in our tax rate would have had a significant effect on the amount of investment within our country, and the implications are very clear. An increase to our 12.5% corporate tax rate could be expected to damage inward investment flows, reduce investment and economic activity in our state, with negative effects on overall corporate tax yield and employment in our country. On the question of so-called loopholes referred to by deputies, all companies and self-employed individuals are entitled to take a deduction for legitimate business expenses when calculating their taxable profits. In addition, Ireland offers a small number of tax measures designed to support particular policy objectives that are clearly set out in law and available to any qualifying company. Both my department and the Revenue publish detailed information on an annual basis outlining the cost of tax expenditures. Clearly, these statutory deductions and release are not loopholes. The only way for such release and incentives to be introduced or amended is through the normal legislative process. In addition, Revenue provides guidance on the conditions for relief and carries out compliance interventions to ensure the accuracy of amounts that are claimed. Furthermore, the tax code is continuously under review to ensure it operates as intended. My department and the Revenue Commissioner work together to bring forward the necessary legislative provisions to address any potential issues that may arise. Ireland is fully engaged in the international process of tax reform and is working in conjunction with EU and other OECD member states. And by doing that, we've introduced extensive reforms in recent years at tackling aggressive tax planning. Some of the many actions taken in this regard include reform of company residence rules and transfer pricing rules, the introduction of new controlled foreign company rules, anti-hybrid rules and an exit tax, and improved transparency, reporting requirements and information exchange. And in summary, Las Ceann Comhairle, I do believe the measures that are being proposed by the deputies of an increased rate in our corporate tax policy is one that would be harmful to jobs in our country and one that would be harmful to the investment that is playing such a critical role in providing tax to our country at a time in which it is needed and providing jobs in our country at a time in which those jobs are so badly needed. And it's for those reasons I won't accept the Deputy's amendment.